Hello, my name is Soren Mays, and I'm a senior at UGA. And recently, I completed my study abroad health trip in Belize. So, as it says on my slide here, this was from May to June. So the total program time was about a month and a week. Um, about three-fourths of that was spent in Belize, and then afterwards, we had some follow-up work that we had to do once we came back. So, for those of you who don't know, Belize is in Central America. As you can see over here on the map on the left, Belize is right below Mexico and it shares a border with Guatemala. You can also see some lovely pictures here of Belize City as well. So, we stayed in San Ignacio in Belize, which was about 20 minutes from the Guatemalan border by car. It was a very nice lodge. The owners were very nice. I will say over the 3 weeks that we were there, we got to know them like really well. They even knew us all by names and everything. And we got really accustomed to having like the Belizean breakfast. They also did throw in a little bit of American flair for us, so you can see there was also pancakes, eggs, and sausages included. Though we spent a lot of time either in classes or at the hospital, we did have quite a number of excursions which kind of evened out all that we had to do because our schedule was quite packed. It was very hectic. So this was one of the first excursions that we went on. We went canoeing in the Barton Creek cave system, and this one, it goes on for about 40 miles, but visitors are only allowed about 0.5 miles in because the cave system changes a lot, like the terrain changes a lot once you get inside. It's very dark. The water levels are also quite different as you go along, but it was definitely an interesting experience. We got to see a lot of Mayan relics that were left behind in the cave. We got to learn a little bit more about Mayan history of sacrifices not being exactly what you think in terms of human sacrifices, but more so animal sacrifices and prayers and food and things like that. Another excursion that we went on was zip lining at Calico Jacks. So the highest platform was about 2,500 feet, 15 miles total, but we only managed to do about 5 platforms. It took a lot to first get up there. I think it was about a 3-hour bus ride to get up there, and to climb up each platform took a very long time, but overall it was a really fun experience. Another highlight of the trip was the Shenantonich Mine Ruin, which is on the border of Guatemala. Almost everything you can see beyond the farthest building in the picture is the Guatemalan border. So that was quite fun. We met a lot of American tourists along the way, actually, and I think they kind of went along with us as we were going around with our guide. Another ruin that we visited was the Caracol Mayan ruin. This one was a lot smaller. It was mostly used for living quarters, and a few ceremonies were held there, whereas Shenantonich was usually for bigger gatherings like festivals and things like that. So here in this picture we can see a mural done by the locals in the Caracol village. This was what the ruin looked like before it became dilapidated. The picture on the left, in the top corner, we can see us like marching down. It was quite a long walk to get up there, but it was very nice once we made it there. And then in the bottom left corner is a ginger plant, and it smelled really, really nice. And I thought it was a beautiful picture to include because as we were walking around seeing these different plants, we learned about how Mayans categorize illnesses into hot and cold, and then it would treat them with the opposite plant. So ginger would be considered a hot plant and would be used for a cold illness such as like a stomach flu. Here we can see a little snapshot of Belizean cuisine. Traditional Belizean breakfast. It's gonna have flapjacks, it's gonna have fruit, it's gonna have beans, and a little bit of bacon and eggs. There's also some food that we actually learned how to make by hand when we visited a mestizo village. You can see plantains in here. You can also see salsa, and there's also some tamarind and sorrel juice, which are plants endemic to Belize. Here are some other foods that we ate along the way. There was some pounded cassava. It looks a lot like mashed potatoes here. And then we also had a lot of tamarind and sorrel sauce, and I think that was also pork chops. And then in the middle, we can see this is a dessert. It was made of coconut and molasses and sugar, and they're kind of heated together and then baked, and then you sort of eat it like that. And then to go with that was a watermelon cherry juice. Okay, so in this slide, this was an expedition we went out to near Belize City, but we weren't quite in the capital. We went to visit the Garifuna people, which, interestingly enough, are Afro-Indigenous peoples that started in the Caribbean, but they were fleeing British rule and ended up in Belize, which was formerly known as the British Honduras. So in this little expedition, we learned a lot of their traditional drummings and traditional dances. I don't have a video here, but everyone was dancing, drumming, having a great time just in general. These are also some pictures that I took at the Garifuna village. That right there, the pink plant is I think they called it a marshmallow berry. Like it really tasted just like marshmallows. It was very sweet and everything. And then there was the Clarissa Falls restaurant that we went to afterwards, which was also really nice. So the hospital that we mostly spent time at was the Lulumulu's hospital. The Northern Region Hospital was another one that we visited, but we did not spend as much time in. The picture in the top right corner is the Lulumulu's hospital. And just like the Northern Regional Hospital, they offered a bunch of different specialties: obstetrician, orthopedic surgery, internal, pediatrician, things like that. And in the bottom right corner, you can also see what a typical hospital room looks like in a Belizean hospital. We weren't able to be completely hands-on during the trip, as we don't have full medical knowledge as students, but we were still able to watch a lot of interesting processes, talk to the doctors, and we were pretty much given free reign to roam around between our rotations. So the application process itself is pretty streamlined. For all the information that you could ever need, you could go to studyoa.uga.edu, which is also where you would sign up for the program that you're most interested in. Already on the website, there's a lot of information available. There's the UGA US Passport Initiative, which can help you get your passport really quickly if you don't already have one. There is a deadline, of course, but depending on what program you apply for, they could help you find a workaround. There's also the National Student Exchange. You can connect to other students. You could also do a semester or two abroad if you'd like. And also the Global Dogs podcast, which gives you a lot of updates on scholarships, programs, travel, all that sort of information. There's also a lot of upcoming events. You can check this daily. You could literally bookmark the website and come back to it whenever you need to check on what's going to be happening that day, because they're always very accurate, down to the minute usually. So this is what your actual application site would look like for the UGA Health in Belize Maymester. There's a lot of things to fill out, but I promise it only takes about an hour to sit down, do even the core applicant questionnaire isn't that long. I will say that this program is quite an expensive one. though the tuition only adds up to about $5,000, which is, typical of like UGA tuition before other costs. There's also additional costs such as airfare, going out, and little things you might pick up along the way. So the cost up front for UGA would be in total about $7,000. But, from being there, in my experience, the cost is really about $8,000 to $9,000. So it is a quite expensive experience. You have to factor in a lot of financial things before deciding to go on this program, but there are also scholarships. So there are some scholarships that will cover half up to the whole study abroad process. It just depends on which one you apply for. So I'd say apply early before the deadline, which I think is October 15th. Apply to as many scholarships as you possibly can inside and outside of UGA to give yourself a better shot at being able to have this program fee completely taken care of, and then the only other fees you'd need would be for traveling around on your own, or the friends you might make along the way on your study abroad trip. So to top off our trip, we spent about 3 days on the coast of Belize. This was a picture that I took on the beach. There was a really nice shrimp and tiki bar. Of course, students aren't allowed to drink while on study abroad trips. However, there were a lot of non-alcoholic beverages, along with small appetizers and desserts and such alike over there. So there was a lot more to enjoy while there. So it was a really great trip, in my opinion. Definitely very worth it. It was quite expensive, but when you think about it, you're paying about that much in tuition, already, and it may seem like a lot of money for a little, but it is a very enriching experience, and I think it's not one to pass up, especially if you can. If you can't, that's one thing, but if you're able to, I'd say apply anyway, and try to get that experience done.